Good morning. My name is Lori Stone. I am the state representative for the 28th House District for just about 4 more months. We know with changing boundaries and the new, as a result of the census, that we will have new representation in the community, and that will be determined by the November general election. So it is important that you show up and that you vote, because you will choose the representation that will continue forward into 2023 and beyond. Happy Saturday morning. Happy Constitution Day. I brought with me today Declaration of Independence and United States Constitutions that you can keep in your pocket. And these are available through our office printed at the taxpayers, already provided and available to you. It's important to know your rights as well as your responsibilities as a citizen and a resident. And this is a great way to start the conversation. So you can help yourself. We have some here today and they're available for your request. Anyone who's joining us, please sign in so we can continue conversations, follow up, and invite you to future community conversations. We have upcoming community conversations scheduled for Saturday, October 15th at 11 a.m. at Centerline Public Library. November 19th, Saturday morning, 11 a.m. We're doing Pints and Politics at Coonan's, and I hope you join us there. And let's go out with a bang for 2022. It's been my honor to represent our community. And I will be here till New Year's Eve, so if you reach out, I'll be here to serve. I am so happy to be joined this morning by Emily. She's an intern and a student at MSU, working in our community's behalf, both in Lansing and in the community, so I really appreciate the support that she's provided. You know, one of the things I realized is that community members don't always know what to reach out to a state representative for. We are your lawmakers. We create policy. We serve on committees. We offer the votes on positions. We decide the state budgets. We also provide customer service for the state of Michigan, both in Lansing and here in district. You can call upon us for assistance navigating departments like unemployment, MDHHS. Those are the ones that we hear about the most. And then the opportunity to provide legislative updates and important information on policy that is relevant and has an impact on our community. And I do this through community conversations, mailings, e-newsletters, town halls, roundtables, attending community events, visiting local businesses and organizations. There are many unique opportunities that this position affords a representative. Just recently, that includes Project Accelerate, which promotes positions for women in the trades and expanding access to minorities to good paying jobs and trades that we desperately need in Michigan because the trades build Michigan. I had the opportunity to attend the Hunt Institute Early Childhood Education Summit at the end of August and brought some very powerful ideas that we can implement here in Michigan just by sharing of ideas of what other states are doing. How can we make our service to the children of Michigan more effective, more efficient, and understanding the economic imperative to make sure that kids have developmental support and that anyone who wants to participate in the workforce has opportunities to. I want to welcome back to school the students and staff. School staff throughout our community have spent many hours preparing to welcome back our students and wrap up summer break. Another school years of hard work and learning has begun for our youth. Attendance and parent involvement are essential to student success. Get involved, stay involved. School board meetings, parent-teacher organizations, volunteers in schools, conferences, School activities, athletics, homecomings are ways not only for parents and families to get involved, but neighbors and community members. And we all have a role in our school district's success. The latest legislative updates from Lansing. A lot of reps have been busy in districts, and legislative leadership has not been calling session. We have our first one in several months on Wednesday. We'll have another one next week. Have some committee meetings, but there have not been committees meeting. There's a lot of policy to go over before we sign out this term in the next 4 months. So I'm anxious to get back to Lansing. Nevertheless, that means that I've been engaged in district and on policy development. I continue to work on education priorities, including addressing teacher shortages. My bill on Kratom consumer protection is getting a hearing in the Senate on Tuesday. I'm very excited. I believe that this bill has the potential to make it through this term, and hopefully will be signed in by the governor before the end of 2022. We've been working closely with the opioid use community, and they brought this idea to me. It's a grassroots initiative, and it will improve the community. It's important that anyone who is buying Kratom understands what it is, what are the impacts, what are the potential side effects, and concerns like the potential for addiction. Let's see. Let's talk about elections. November 8th is the general election. If you haven't already requested an absentee ballot, you have the right to request it. I find absentee ballots helpful for being very considerate and deliberative on who you're going to vote for, how you're going to vote, and what are the implications of what's on your ballot. I felt like as a citizen, there were many times that it didn't matter how prepared I felt I was on who I was going to vote for. There were things on the ballot that I didn't know and was concerned about voting against my interests. The nice part about voting from home is you can take the time to look over every item on your ballot, partisan and nonpartisan, and look it up and make the decision that's best for you. So in addition to elected officials, legislative, executive, we have judicial, and I don't think people have considered the implications of judicial elections as much as in the last 6 months. And so take the time, if there's candidate forums, to meet the candidates. Every election cycle is a job interview. Go online. There's more resources online, that trusted opportunities to go on and research candidates. Take your time. There are several proposals, citizen-led ballot initiatives, legislative ballot initiative. One is on term limits. Be thoughtful on how you read through the potential implications. Weigh your pros and cons and make the decision that works for you. We know that reproductive freedom for all, with the Michigan Supreme Court decision, has been added to the ballot. Again, research it, know before you vote. We also have additional voting rights that you get to weigh in. And we know 2019 led to voters putting onto the Constitution protections for our voting rights. Voting is not only your right, it's your responsibility to representative government. So make sure that you consider it carefully. Yeah, I think that tackles the election topic I wanted to cover. Keep in mind that all our hunters who are preparing for hunting season, there are changes to reporting deer harvesting. So if you hunt and you take a deer, the DNR has moved from call-in or in-person reporting to an online reporting system. There's an app that you can add to a smartphone and make it easy to report in 3 to 5 minutes. If you don't have access to an internet, get to a local library, have a family member help you, but it is important that you know that there is this changing method for reporting. Hunters have up to 72 hours after taking a deer to report their harvest. DNR through pilot program estimates a 3 to 5 minute process to be able to take care of that. Reporting online at michigan.gov/DNR harvest report, or use the new mobile app. It's available for both Android and Apple phones on app stores. Where are we at?
While you're pausing.
Yes.
There may be a life-death problem with deer right now. I'm not sure. I'm not up
Are we
on-
talking about,
There's some kind of a thing that if the deer are not properly cooked, it's kind of like the old thing with pork. but-
So he's talking about chronic wasting
but I
disease?
don't know what.
Yeah.
I'm not up on that.
Yeah, so hunters are pretty familiar that there is chronic wasting disease that is present in Michigan herds. Not all herds. I don't profess to be an expert, so I direct people to the DNR. There's information available. We also publish a hunt and hook on licensing and direct people to resources so they can make those awareness.
I thought I'd mention it.
There, to my knowledge, that this is not a disease that transfers from animal to human, so that's important that people know. Yep. But it is important because we want to be aware and watching for those things because we see that it happens. Thank you for bringing that up.
I'm big on threats, but as you know.
Yes, you are. And it's important for people to be educated. I do want to raise awareness. September is Suicide Prevention Month. And if you or a loved one is having trouble with coping with sadness, depression, stress, anxiety, or feeling suicidal, we have the 988 system, which is a handy emergency access system that mirrors 911, in that it will help connect you with resources. You can talk to someone. There are also, if you prefer texting, there are text apps. Yeah.
Along with this, has anything happened to increase availability? I have spent probably 7 to 8 hours this month trying to find mental health availability in Warren, and there simply isn't there.
So we have some resources. I'd be happy to help connect you.
So anyone could contact your office and get some
Yes,
resources?
absolutely.
Because it's been very, I found.
But you are right. We have shortages of mental health providers across the state, across the community, and across the country.
Right.
One of it is how well do we reimburse for insurance codes for mental health, and that has been something that is high demand. And so there is an imperative in the state legislature, bipartisan leadership on improving access to community mental health. But it's a whole economic issue, right? If you are going to school for a medical degree or an advanced degree, it's expensive. And if, depending on the reimbursements rates and your salary, are people opting to go into public service versus professional services? And how do we attract them and how do we keep them? And so we have bolstered reimbursements of student loans for people who are providing services in the public sector. So that's one thing, but we still have a long way to go, and it took us a while to get here. And so building back the professional mental health providers is going to take a while. And there's also the issue of inpatient beds and crisis and complex patients. Each of these are separate. You'll hear a lot of times that we need more inpatient mental health beds. And that's not necessarily the case. We do need more inpatient mental health beds for treating pediatric patients. We are seriously lacking in those areas, and complex patients who might have cognitive issues, traumatic brain injuries, It's much more complex, and it's more expensive to treat them. And so the one thing I learned was we can't confuse just general beds. And the other piece is every bed needs to have staff. There's ratios to staffing each bed. And so you could have all the beds on a mental health floor you want, but if you don't have the patient providers to match the number of beds, you can't serve patients. And so, we still are putting out fires there.
There's a huge problem with smoking, because if you desperately need a bed and you're a smoker, none of the mental health facilities in this area accept smokers, except the one down in Grosse Pointe, one on Maras. I have a friend that was north of Pontiac, and they spent 4 days trying to find a bed, and nothing, even if they had beds available, it was a choice between mental health assistance or smoking, and these people, if you have a mental health problem, you're not giving up smoking.
Yeah, I can't speak
I know, I'm not asking.
but I recognize that it's complex.
It's a very complex
It's
problem.
absolutely, and there are things that people can do to ask for cessation help and medical interventions, but those are decisions between a patient, doctors, and providers. So get the word out. We don't want any lives lost to suicide when we have resources to help. We passed in the last legislature that every student ID issued in the state should have access to a suicide helpline. So young people who don't see very far into the future as to what the outcome of their decisions are, know that in times of desperation, there are people to reach out to.
Now, 211 was supposed to solve that.
211 is separate.
It's gone.
211.
I'll tell you, it's terrible.
211 is served by United Way, and they connect community to critical resources. And they are still there, but they don't provide mental health care or physical health care, right? So 911 is physical health care. 988 is emotional and mental health care.
Glad to hear that. Because
Yes.
the 211 when it was first announced, it was so great, but
And 211 was the catch-all, right? It was white pages. It was everything else that wasn't 911.
I used to do that, and we had a book that we could go.
Yes. And
They're still doing it, they're still going through that, I can hear it.
they still have resources. Absolutely. Now
It
they
takes
have more
forever. If
online.
someone's got a problem, you gotta go through all these menus, so.
Yeah.
So, glad to hear 980, thank you.
Yep, and 211 is still in effect. They are helping with food shortages. They can, and so in talking with our United Way representation, they said in our community specifically, where we have hardworking families that are struggling to make ends meet, many families are looking for assistance for food to get through the month because their paycheck is not getting them the housing, the transportation, the food, the clothing, the essentials to get through a month. And that's a really sad state in our country that we don't have those resources. A day's work should pay for those basics. So encourage people to continue to reach out to 211. In addition to
But not for suicide.
food assistance, also assistance with utilities and monthly bills is also something that is looked for in our community. Yes.
Are there classes being developed, or are they available for our police and fire to help them identify mental health? I don't know if you saw the article in yesterday's newspaper. A young boy in his 20s was having a mental health breakdown, and he pulled over to the side. He called 911. He explained he was having a mental health breakdown. The police came, found him combative. He refused to get out of the car, so they shot and killed him.
It's tragic.
Because the police could not identify, and we were at the zoo, we were trained to identify autistic people, but we need to get mental health,
That's how we were trained. Been there.
what, to shoot the person?
At the zoo.
If they're combative and they don't cooperate,
You should have.
you
Well-
were included, there was no mental health stuff included.
Well, let's keep the, we can,
I'm sorry.
that can go separate, but let's keep on track. So that's a decision that's made by our local units of government.
But
There are there's some training, you know, how much and is it sufficient? That's a decision to be made locally by local units of government. There are pushes to expand partnerships in communities across the country between social workers, mental health professionals, so that when there are calls that are identified as mental health, that these teams of special responders include mental health professionals that can take the lead on it. And it is something that's powerful, and it's something that is been recognized to be effective in several communities that have led on this issue. And that's one less thing for our first responders, that if that's, you know, if that's not my experience, you know, then I would want a professional to help take the lead on that and kind of guide how to, you know, de-escalate, and what am I looking at? How do I handle this? Because they are trained for a very specific response.
I understand.
Yeah,
I don't blame the cops. I blame that they need social workers available.
absolutely. Absolutely. Mental health crisis is a thing, and it is not a crime.
No.
September is also National Preparedness Month. Does your household have enough to be sustainable for up to 3 days on your own in the case of a disaster? The Disability Network of Eastern Michigan it provides information and referral specialists who can help you guide you through the development of an emergency preparedness plan for your household and your unique needs. You know, Michigan is prone to tornadoes, to flooding, and those are natural disasters. And now we have to look at heat, prolonged heat disasters. How do you respond? What do you need? We're more dependent on electric and charging, and what do you need to be sustainable for that? So this is a great opportunity to sit down. We're working on a fire prevention. Fire prevention's coming up in November, to look at all these resources and provide some guidance on where to go. There are also apps that you can set up on smartphones that provide emergency responders your personal health,
Record.
yeah, any essential personal health information, allergies, medications, conditions that can help a first responder meet your needs, as well as contacts on who needs to be contacted in your life if you are experiencing something and you are not able to contact.
Can you recommend some of those apps? I've never even heard of that thing.
There are, you know, there's different ones for different phones. I don't have it, but I can encourage you to look through them. There should be ratings on a lot of app stores. Yeah. I know Apple has their own one that is like in there.
The fire department might have something, I have to check on it for you.
Yes, tomorrow, Warren Fire Department from noon to 4 is having their community safety fair over by the police department and City Hall. It's great for kids. They do some great educational pieces. It's fun, but there are also tons of resources for adults in the community as well. So I encourage you to show up, check it out, and get those resources. Keep in mind, October's community conversation is October 15th, 11 a.m. at Centerline Public Library. We've been so very fortunate to partner with our local libraries to provide a space to have these continued conversations. And I just look forward to that opportunity. I have covered my agenda. Again, there's resources available. I encourage you to look through them, take them back to neighbors. You should be getting in the mail information on your rights voting. This went out. It hit my mailbox this week. So take a look at that. And at this point, I will open it up.
Is it October 3rd they begin absentee mailings?
I believe September 29th, those start to, yes, thank you. September 29th, those are leaving city clerks and should be hitting mailboxes soon after.